If you get a message, I'm your messenger. The way you wish your voice would sound.
10 years. How to live as ghosts. This is their, technically, count their earlier works that haven't really bothered to be released. We're up to maybe 8, 9, 10. Somewhere around there. And, yes. Supposedly, though I did not know this until researching for this album, their last album, which was fucking phenomenal if you didn't get a chance to check it out. Especially if you're also not only so much a 10 Years fan as if you were a Tool fan who needed to get your fix. Whew! And for what 10 Years had to offer, for the most part it was that. Sound-wise it was super dark, but and that opening track was the best. And the way they closed this album off was pretty good too. So far, in terms of singles, this time around, I felt like, for the most part, they actually knew what they were doing, singles-wise, here and there. As you've heard, the first track, The Messenger, which, for the most part, this album is mostly dealing with a rebirthing for the band themselves, because originally they were going to have, I guess, From Birth to Burial be their closing, or that album was supposed to be a rebirth to the band themselves, or something, and this one's supposed to deal a lot in dealing with death as instead of as a negative condensation, as a more optimistic thing, which may or may not make sense to most normal people, but given my Catholic background, I see where they're coming from and how death can be also more of a rebirth into a new life or something of that nature. Of course, if you're a Buddhist, you probably understand it too, I guess. But regardless, I mean, I actually have a lyric sheet, but I'm not really even going to go too far into it necessarily. All I can really tell you is the highlights of this album. It's in and of itself, and sound-wise, where the album is going from in comparison to the last album, which was very more Tool-esque. This album seems to go more in the direction they used to go in, which was clearly far more sounding like that of a far more radio-friendly Perfect Circle kind of ripoff, but, one that's, you could be, if you play your cards right, you can get away with it. And 10 Years knows how to play their cards right. Most of the time. The only time they haven't was, I believe the album was, I know it was the one prior to From Birth to Burial, and that was the album that, honestly, near the second half, with the second half really kind of bogged down, and it just took me out of it. It kind of bored me. It made me not believe in what they did until From Birth to Burial. They finally went back on track and did something completely out of what they normally do. In fact, they made an album that was heavier than... Fuck, I'm even forgetting some of the album names. It's been so long since I've listened to 10 Years, to be honest with you. But I know it's the one with the wolves. So, something with that. Something with that title. Forgive me if I'm not doing this right, but... Yeah. But with this album, How to Live as Ghosts, the real question was how are they going to follow up that album? I didn't even think there were. And they did, and, I can't exactly say it's better than that album. But I dare say it's almost on par in its own right. I will say, sound-wise, it's very much reminds me of the stuff more closer to Autumn Effect and Divisions. And I know some fans are like, with Divisions, but I'm actually one of those few people who actually liked Divisions. And was fine with that radio-friendly approach, which they do have here, but they do dive deeper into doing a lot more, as opposed to kind of coming off a little more samey, like they did with their last album. more, no, not their last album, or samey with that, right, like with Divisions. This one definitely has a little bit more going on for it. Though, sure, there's no screamed vocals as opposed to From Birth to Burial on the other album that's name is apparently escaping me, and I feel awful as a 10 Years fan for having forgotten it. Even though I guess I'm not the most diehard as I should be. So forgive me, Jesse and the rest of the boys in 10 years. But for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, the tracks that I would definitely highlight the most has been the opener itself, The Messenger. Definitely finds a way to come off on a slightly heavier note for what it is. And then, of course, leading into Novocaine, the first single, which I did not care for the way the chorus is, the Dead as Dead Can Be part, which has the kiddish choir in there, in that almost We Don't Need No Education, but not necessarily Pink Floyd, another Brick in the Wall Part 2 thing, but not necessarily like that, to where it's annoying. It finds a way to kind of blend itself in to the chorus. You still hear Jesse's vocals over it, or at least it to where the kids' vocals are kind of, or volume is down and level with Jesse's voice, to where you can still hear Jesse's voice. It's a little bit more out of it. And it's mostly throughout the chorus, though, so, But, of course, the other, but that turned me off, but then I heard tracks like Burnout, and then promote the rest of the album with tracks like Burnout, the pseudo-title track of Ghosts, and I believe Halos, I think, was one of Phantoms, I believe, was one, and so was, I think, Halos. And those were definitely dang good tracks. But also some other good, deeper cuts are Vampires. There's Vampires. This is pretty good. Lucky You is kind of, I guess, sarcastic in its, even though it's mostly optimistic, it's kind of comes off tongue-in-cheeky, sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of sarcasm. I mean, I'm not really sure I should read the lyrics off right now, but, about it, But for those who are going to get this album, check it out for yourself and, get back to me if you must. But for me, the Insomnia, though, despite it being kind of typical of what they've already done throughout the rest of this album, and in the past with the albums I had mentioned, comparing it to, this album, this track, at least in the way it ends itself, makes it seem like it is truly a worthy closing track for this album. And definitely gets you to want to come back and listen to this record. I wouldn't say it's as, like I said, I wouldn't say it's as good, but it's on par, if not close enough to From Birth to Burial. But overall, it's good enough to say that I would consider, given my tastes and how much I've managed to review this year and what I have listened to, I'm definitely considering this in my top 10. Therefore, it deserves this big stamp of approval that this album truly rocks all the way. And unfortunately, of the albums that have come out this past week, this album is the highlight in terms of the rock genre itself, or metal, or, well, actually rock in this case, but still. I enjoyed this album. What did you guys think of 10 Years, How to Live as Ghosts? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you wish we had another From Birth to Burial? To me, I'm fine with this, especially given the fact that A Perfect Circle's coming out with a new track, and this kind of works in the sense that it holds me over for that possible album. So, there's that. Whatever you guys think of, just comment below, let me know. And as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I will see you in the next video, which will be involved an album that just disappoints, and another album that's not necessarily disappointing but is okay, and a movie that's actually pretty good despite what most people will say. Take care, y'all.